Welcome back, guys. As you can see, I decided to do a video that's a little bit different than my normal style, but hopefully you like this. I couldn't figure out any other good way to do this video. I like to help out any baby bats watching my channel as often as I can, and I was going to do just a normal tips for baby goths type video like most people do. However, I realized that most people, when they start out in the Gothic subculture, probably take to YouTube for some advice. And you can watch every single goth YouTuber's opinions on what goth music is, what goth clothing is, decor, jewelry, hair, everything you can imagine, and every one of them has a different opinion. Typically, the only thing that stays the same across the board is the music, and everything else is vastly different. So I decided I was going to try breaking things down to you in a way that makes it a little bit easier to understand. Phone apps. I spent an entire week looking at various different phone apps that are meant for people in the Gothic subculture, testing them out and deciding which ones would be the best to help baby bats find their footing in the subculture. The first app I found encompasses anything in the Gothic subculture that you think you would like to learn about, and that's the Gothic Beauty Magazine app. Yes, it is a magazine app, which means that it does come with subscriptions, but you don't necessarily have to subscribe if you don't want to. The app has every single issue of the magazine going back to, I think, even the very beginning of it, which is cool, and there are previews for all of them as well as the cover of the magazine. The cover can help a lot in terms of finding your own individualized look for hair, makeup, and clothing, because they try to have a girl from every branch of the Gothic subculture. They try to have a completely different looking girl each time they put out a magazine, but still have her be goth, so there are many different styles of goth on their covers. You can choose one girl from one magazine and use her as the beginning point of your look, or you can grab bits and pieces of multiple different styles and fuse them together in whatever way you think looks best to you. Inside the magazine, when you look at the preview for them, you usually get to see interviews from bands, different Gothic band members, which is helpful when you're trying to learn about a goth band and all you can find on YouTube is the music. And sometimes you even see home decor ideas, which is super helpful for your style. I think that this magazine would be worth a subscription, but as I said, if you're a little afraid of magazine subscriptions, as they can be difficult to get back out of if you want to escape, it is still very helpful to just see the previews. One Stop Brutalities, or One Stop Brutal Shop, is the next app that I want to discuss with you. This is an app that's more for clothing and jewelry than anything else, although they do have some home decor, not a lot, and some hair dyes. I like this shop because it has a varying price point, anything from the cheapest cheap to the most expensive, and many of the famous goth clothing brands sell to that site. I know a lot of goths on YouTube claim that you're not a real goth if you're buying something from one of the goth stores, but honestly, I've bought stuff from shops like that before and nobody knew the difference. They just sat there and complimented my outfit. Unless you sit there and say, yeah, I bought everything I'm wearing from Doll's Kill, who's really going to know? It's a good starting point because if you're not really sure exactly how you want to look yet, they do have sections on like t-shirts and black denims. They have sections for dresses. If you like to wear dresses, that's a very good starting point because you can make them more individualized with accessories. But just like the Gothic Beauty magazine, you don't necessarily have to download this app with the intent to purchase anything. You can just take a look at some of the design ideas and feel a little bit inspired by them to do DIY. I just wanted to throw this one in there because not everybody can do DIY, whether they have a physical handicap that doesn't allow them to, they don't have the time, or they just don't know how. I don't think you're less goth because you can't do DIY. So go ahead, take a look at that app. It is extremely helpful. The third app is actually a collection of different apps. It's always a good idea if you're starting on the subculture and you're not entirely sure what every single point of it is, to get a goth radio app. There are a few out there for Android or iPhone, so don't worry if you have one or the other. And many of them have multiple different radio stations made for and by goth people, which is a very good starting point for the music. Just be careful, guys, when you use the goth radio apps, because just like everything else in the subculture, that's possibly somebody's opinion on what goth music is. If you're listening to one of the stations and you really love a band, just make sure you research whether or not it's from the right time period to be a goth band, and whether or not it was played at the Batcave. That's always a good two-step point on figuring out whether or not something's a goth band. That's all I have for you today, but I hope that it was helpful. If you aren't really sure who to believe on YouTube and you're too self-conscious to ask anybody right now, apps are a good way to start off in the subculture. As always, do something that makes you happy today, no matter what anyone else says about it, and I'll see you all soon.